Every one of these people write my check. Every one of them do. I try to spend as much time as I can with them, and if we don't rise to the occasion all the time, I feel like I've failed.
I want you to take a moment and think about someone you know who loves old things. Maybe it's
on set was incredible. I didn't actually work with any stuntmen on the set.
We would love to. We just need the leads. So anybody out there, if you've got any leads for us, you can email us.
It's your grandpa with his tools, or an old friend who collects baseball cards, or even
4.5 years. How do I look, Danny? Hot. I've sat on these things before, but I've never actually ridden one.
even someone who finds old furniture and makes it new again. Now imagine that person, the one who brings history to life with their own hands, is suddenly gone. Not just gone from your life, but gone from the world you knew them in, locked away forever. That's the feeling so many people are having right now, a feeling of deep sadness and confusion, because a man we all thought we knew, a man who taught us to love the past, has been sentenced to spend the rest of his life in prison. I'm talking about Mike Wolfe, the face of a show we all watched called American Pickers, and the story of how he got here is crazier than any TV show you could ever imagine. It's a story of hidden secrets, old objects with even older stories, and a dark side to a world we thought was full of harmless fun. Get ready, because what I'm about to tell you will change the way you look at every old thing you ever find. On a quiet Tuesday morning, March 12th, 2025, the news came out like a lightning strike on a sunny day. Every major news channel, every website, every radio station was talking about the same thing. Mike Wolfe, our friendly picker, the guy with the big smile and the knack for finding treasures in dusty barns, was going to jail for the rest of his life. The words they used were so big and scary, they almost didn't sound real. They talked about transnational artifact smuggling, which is a fancy way of saying he was secretly moving ancient and valuable things from one country to another. They said he was involved in a professor's death, and that he had been messing with the prices of antiques, making millions of dollars in secret. To everyone who watched him on TV, this was impossible. Mike was the good guy. He was the one who respected history, who talked to old people and listened to their stories. He was the kind of person who made you want to go out and look for your own little piece of the past. But what came out in his trial showed a different side, a side we never saw. It showed a man who was cold, who was smart in a very bad way, and who was connected to some very dangerous people who trade in stolen history. The whole thing started in a really strange and quiet way in a town called Bloomington, Indiana, on June 17, 2023. A neighbor called the police because there was a weird smell coming from a basement. When the police went to check, they found an old man, a retired history professor named Harold Clemens, who had passed away. He was lying on his back, and in his hand, he was holding a little silver pocket watch. It had some words on it, RK 1887 for honor not glory. At first, everyone thought it was just a sad story about an old man's time coming to an end. But that watch, that one tiny object, was the first clue in a mystery that would unravel Mike Wolfe's entire life. Just a week later, a museum in a city far away, Savannah, put out a memo, a kind of internal note, that someone leaked to the internet. It said that the pocket watch the professor was holding was actually a really important historical piece that had gone missing from their museum back in 2019. The museum hadn't told anyone it was gone because they were embarrassed, but now that it had appeared in a dead man's hand, they couldn't keep it a secret anymore. The news of a stolen watch spread like wildfire on the internet, especially on a website where people talk about old things. And that's when a person with the name Ajir Ghost 82 wrote something that made everything click into place. They said, "I swear I saw this exact watch in an unaired episode of American Pickers when Mike visited a farm in Kentucky. It was in his palm, and he even said this watch tells stories." Soon, a whole bunch of other people started saying the same thing. They remembered seeing a picture of the watch online, or in a short video on YouTube that was taken down later. Some people even said they saw a watch just like it for sale in Mike's store, Antique Archaeology in Nashville. This was all the proof the FBI needed to start a secret investigation, a super secret one. They called it Rust Rail, and it was all about finding out if Mike was part of a huge, illegal network that was trading in stolen antiques, not just in America, but all over the world. One of the first big clues the FBI got was a video from the History Channel that a former employee secretly gave to them. The video was a little blurry, but it was clear enough to see Mike in a warehouse in Kentucky talking to a man. Mike was buying a bunch of old military watches, and you could hear him say, "I know this piece went through the hands of an officer. It definitely has historical value. I want to ask where you got it." It was a strange thing to say, almost like he was telling the man he didn't want to know the truth. The FBI also found out that the dead professor, Harold Clemens, had talked about Mike before. In an old video from a conference, the professor had said, "Some artifacts should never be for sale. They carry pain no amount of money can buy." And a secret email from the professor's computer, sent just 3 days before he died, said that he thought he had found an illegal chain of deals being made by a well-known television figure, and he was thinking about calling the police. Even though the police said the professor probably died from a fall, a small bruise on the back of his head made everyone wonder. From that moment on, the investigation changed. Mike Wolfe wasn't just a picker anymore. He was a suspect, and that little silver watch was the tiny spark that lit the fire under his whole empire. The secret investigation, Rust Rail, became a massive effort. The FBI and a special team that works on stopping the illegal trade of old things started watching every single episode of American Pickers, and they also asked for all the behind-the-scenes videos and records from the TV show. What they found was shocking. From 2020 to 2023, Mike and his team had found over 40 things that never made it onto the TV show. There were receipts for them, but nobody knew where they had gone after that. The FBI started following one of Mike's helpers, a driver named Craig Salinas. They watched him for 6 hours straight, and they saw him drive a van from antique archaeology to an old, run-down warehouse that wasn't on any of the show's official lists. When the police pretended to be safety inspectors and went inside, they found a bunch of old wooden boxes, and inside them were things from the 18th and 19th centuries, including 3 things that had been reported as stolen from a museum in Georgia. This was just the tip of the iceberg. The biggest discovery came when the FBI got search warrants for 2 storage places that belonged to a made-up company that was secretly owned by Mike. In one of the places, they found a ton of antiques that didn't have any papers. There were old guns from the Civil War, old papers with handwriting on them, and even a huge statue of an Egyptian god that was almost a meter tall, all carefully stored in a box that protected it from getting damaged. An official report said that this statue was one that was stolen from a museum in Egypt back in 2011. The FBI then followed the money and found that Mike owned 5 small companies in places where it's easy to hide money from the government. From 2016 to 2023, almost $5 million had moved through these companies, but none of the deals had ever been approved by experts or real auction houses. They even found out that a secret bank account in Switzerland with Mike's name on it had received a huge amount of money from a person who was known to be a part of the illegal antique market in a place called Aleppo, Syria, a place where many valuable things were stolen during the war. The way Mike did it all was so smart, so sneaky. He never used his official team to move the stuff after they filmed the show. He used a different person, someone from Eastern Europe, and they were only known by a fake name in Mike's messages. All the paperwork was done through a fax app on a computer, and payments were made in cash or a kind of online money called cryptocurrency. The FBI decided they had to get closer, so they had a secret agent meet with Mike in an antique shop. In a secret recording from that meeting, Mike said, "Not every item should be on TV. Some things are meant for those who truly understand their value, not the audience." Right after that, the FBI went into 3 of Mike's places, including a secret warehouse in Nashville. There, they found a handwritten paper with a code on it called List 17. It had names of things, strange symbols, and prices for the secret black market. Next to it was a notebook belonging to Mike, where he had written in pencil, "They will never understand. This is about heritage, not money." But the FBI knew that taking something that was stolen from a museum in another country wasn't about saving history. It was about being a criminal. With all this evidence, Mike Wolfe was officially named the main suspect in what would become the biggest scandal to ever hit reality TV. The trial was a big deal. On January 9th, 2025, Mike's trial started in Chicago. Security was super tight, and outside, there were a lot of people holding signs that said "Free Mike," because they still believed it was all a misunderstanding. But inside the courtroom, the truth was even darker. The official list of charges was 39 pages long, and it said he had done 6 very bad things, like illegally moving old things, selling stolen cultural items from other countries, not paying his taxes, and even hiding proof related to a death. The punishment they were asking for was life in prison without any chance of ever getting out. The lawyer for the government started by showing pictures and videos that nobody had ever seen before, showing Mike making shady deals in places that weren't on the TV show's list. One video showed him giving cash to a man from Syria in exchange for a small box of old Roman coins. The lawyer said that Mike wasn't a collector. He was a bad businessman who was using the TV show to hide all the illegal things he was doing. A huge part of the case against Mike came from a very sad and surprising person, his old partner, Frank Fritz. After leaving the show, Frank had agreed to be a witness. He stood up in court and said in a very quiet voice, "We had once promised to only collect what was legal, but as time went on, everything changed." Mike became obsessed with things no one else had. Frank said that Mike had once told him, "To keep the show alive, we have to dig deeper, both literally and figuratively." Frank even remembered a time in 2021 when they found an old diary from a war in Arkansas. Mike took it and no one ever saw it again, but weeks later, Frank saw a copy of that same diary for sale on a secret market for 15 times more than they had paid for it. Mike's lawyers didn't really have a good answer for all the proof. They just said that Mike was a good guy who got caught up in a system he couldn't control, and that all the bad stuff was done by the people who worked for him. They said all the secret money was just from his private collection sales, which was a lie. Mike himself didn't say much during the whole trial. On the 31st day, when the judge asked him if he wanted to talk to the jury, he just stood up, looked them in the eye, and said, "I never saw myself as a criminal. I just wanted to save what others had thrown away. If that makes me guilty, I accept it." Everyone was shocked. Some people thought he was a hero. Others thought he was admitting he was a bad person. On the day the decision was made, the judge took just a little over 4 minutes to read the words that would change Mike's life forever. The judge said that because there was so much proof, and because what Mike did was so planned and organized, especially with the stolen things from other countries, the court was giving Mike Wolfe a life sentence in prison without any chance of getting out. He also lost all of his rights to the show and his business, antique archaeology. In the room, an old man who had watched the show for 10 years started to cry. Online, the fan pages that used to love Mike started to disappear. The name Mike Wolfe, which used to mean American history and treasure hunting, was suddenly gone from the world. But a bigger question still floated in the air. If Mike was the one in charge of all this, then who were all the people behind him? The world Mike had built came crashing down in just 3 days. The History Channel said that American Pickers was officially canceled, and they took all the old videos off their website. The show's YouTube channel was deleted. The website for antique archaeology was suddenly blank with only one sentence: temporarily suspended. The FBI closed down both of Mike's stores in Iowa and Tennessee. They went into the secret warehouse in Nashville and spent almost a month making a list of everything inside. What they found was even more shocking. There were many items with fake papers, and some of them were old religious things that had been stolen from places like Iraq, Syria, and Yemen, where there had been wars. One of the things was an old marble carving that was believed to have been from a royal tomb and had been stolen way back in 2003. All of this made the whole world of buying and selling antiques stop for a little while, as big auction houses and collectors started to wonder if the things they had bought were secretly stolen. The public was still very divided. Some people, the super loyal fans, thought Mike was being blamed for a system that had been bad for a long time. They thought he was a good person who was being used as a scapegoat. On websites like X and Reddit, people started trying to find holes in the investigation, saying that maybe Mike found out about something that someone else didn't want him to know. A strange thing that made people think this was something they found on that List 17 paper. At the very end of it, there was a line of letters and numbers, Q7R3 VTI. No one knew what it meant, and people started making up stories that it was a code for a secret organization that sold old things, maybe even one that was connected to very powerful people. Another strange clue was in Mike's personal notebook. Along with notes about the show, there was one page that was all folded up and hidden, and on it was a single sentence. Not all past should be brought to light. It was like he wanted someone to find it by accident. Mike Wolfe, the man who was once the king of old things, is now inmate hashtag 42719-54 at a federal prison. He's not allowed to talk to the news. An old friend who worked with him said that he doesn't talk to anyone and just eats and walks alone. It's like he knew this was going to happen. In March 2025, the FBI said that there were still other people connected to the case who they were watching, which means the whole story isn't over yet. They even called in a person who used to be in charge of the TV show at the History Channel, the one who was supposed to watch all the episodes before they went on TV. The question is, did that person know about all the videos that were cut and buried? To understand how all this happened, you have to go all the way back to the beginning. Mike Wolfe was born in a poor family in a town in Illinois in 1964. He had to grow up with use things that other people didn't want. He loved them. He didn't collect baseball cards like other kids. He dug through trash to find broken radios and bikes. He used to say, if it's worthless to everyone else, it's even more worth keeping. When American Pickers came on TV in 2010, Mike was in his 40s, but the way his eyes would light up when he found an old license plate was like he was a little kid all over again. He and Frank Fritz, his old partner, drove all over the country, finding treasures and talking to people. Everyone loved him because he was a good person, but maybe, just maybe, that passion went too far. A person who worked with him a long time ago once said he didn't just collect objects, he collected control over memory. As the show got more and more popular, Mike felt like he had to find bigger and better things. He started looking in places he wasn't supposed to, places like black markets, and even getting things from places where there had been wars. No one knows exactly when he changed, but he stopped looking for things no one wanted and started looking for things people were afraid to keep. Maybe in his head, he was doing the right thing, saving history from being forgotten, but the law doesn't care about what you think is right. It only cares about what you do. Mike Wolfe, the man who drove across America collecting memories, became a TV star and then, in the end, a criminal who will spend his life in prison. This story is a very sad reminder that sometimes, the line between loving something and doing something wrong is so thin you can barely see it. And no matter how deep you bury the truth, it will always find its way back to the light. Do you think Mike Wolfe was a good person who was a victim of a bad system, or do you think he was a bad person who just went too far? Let us know what you think in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel, and hit that bell so you can stay updated with all of our latest videos.